Patience and temperance, fellow netizens. I am Mr. M. Today I am speaking about politics. I am speaking about how I feel, what the government is going to look like, who my president is, and what my day-to-day reality will look like over the next few years. First off, it's worth acknowledging that my preferred outcome would have been a President Harris over a second Trump administration. You may do with that information as you please. Second, I will attempt to ease the nerve of those who had a similar preferred outcome, understanding that even with a trifecta at the federal level, something that I explained in a previous video, the Republican Party has since undermined this opportunity that they've had with a lack of procedural unity, as demonstrated in the past couple weeks with what Republicans have done with their control in Congress. Furthermore, President Trump has also shown during his first administration his lacking capabilities to build consensus within the context of a bureaucratic apparatus. And this has been shown not only in his first administration, but in actions that he has taken over the past few weeks in preparation for his current administration, which has just started. Side note, to my friends who are supporters of President Trump, he is now the top bureaucrat at the federal government. He is the world's biggest bureaucrat. He is the establishment. There is no other person who can embody the establishment more than Donald Trump, especially at this point in time. He's also the oldest person to be elected president, but all those rants are a video for another day. Furthermore, one thing I learned during the presidency of Joe Biden is how a sign of maturity is the making of peace with the establishment. Those of you who get those references, you know who you are. Purely based on the fact that I am a resident of the United States, let alone a natural-born citizen who has lived his entire life in the United States, it must be said that Donald Trump is my president. Side note, to acknowledge that Donald Trump is your president, you have to acknowledge that Joe Biden was the lawfully elected president over the past 4 years up until today, but that, again, is the video for another day. The only thing that will change Donald Trump being my president within the next 4 years, notwithstanding any sort of horrible circumstances, is for me to leave the United States with no intention of returning. Now, I've previously stated that if you're somebody who intends to do so, you have at worst until 2031 to do so. Given the demonstrated lack of consensus within the Republican Party over the past few weeks that I explained earlier, I believe I can update that estimate to 2033 and even to 2035 if I'm feeling a little lucky. If this seems like it's way too far out there, then maybe American society is not in as imminent danger as you may feel. That's not to say that there isn't a threat to American society, because the current president has had a net negative impact on American society. Which brings me to my final point. Given the demonstrated and articulated capacity, or lack thereof, of who is now the current president, distinctives of the second Trump administration are likely going to look like an amalgamation of what has happened in numerous red states across America, at least over the past few years with former President Biden at the wheel. Given that the state of Tennessee, where I live, is a very red state, and I have been immersed for all intents and purposes within what goes on here for the past 3 years, I honestly expect the actions of the federal government, at least over the next 2 years, that they will have at worst a marginal impact on my day-to-day life, and likely a negligible one if I'm being real. In conclusion, I would have preferred a President Harris over a re-inaugurated President Trump. The next 2 years will likely be like the first 2 years of our president's first administration during 2016 to 2018. He is my president regardless of any disposition within me, and I expect the actions and disposition of President Trump to change my life very marginally, at least over the next 2 years. To my fellow netizens, temperance and patience.